Welcome to the LawyerFair.co.uk daily podcast. LawyerFair helps businesses find the right lawyer at the fairest price. But on this podcast, we just chew the fat with some great guests.
So my guest, coughing away in the background, I'm going to do a little intro just to introduce my guest, who's obviously suffering from a little throaty cough there. But my intro is this. There's a bit of a startup journey that I've been involved in with LawyerFair, and it's been a completely new experience in some levels. And what happens is you are kind of out there in the marketplace, meeting a ton of people. Some are great, some are bad, some are ugly. But the people that are great and good, you really remember. And actually, my guest today is very much in that category because I went down to do a recording of a show called Business Bunker about a year ago and have since actually been back for a second recording. And it's hosted by the magnificent Paul Andrews, who is Mr. Kent, and for whom I have an enormous amount of affection already, but co-hosted by Jules Serkin, who is with me today. Welcome, Jules.
Hello, Andrew. How are you?
I'm extremely well. Thank you very much for joining me. I know for reasons that we're going to articulate shortly that you are flat out busy this week. So to join us on our humble little podcast is a thrill.
Well, I've heard wonderful things about your podcast.
Well, I need to find out who those people are and write down their names.
And I don't actually have a throaty cough. It's just that I've just wolfed down my mum's shepherd's pie. And if you've ever tasted my mum's shepherd's pie, it's just astounding. So I had, 3 portions and then straight onto the phone with you.
Well, I feel, I had a reasonably safe and solid upbringing. I've got no complaints, very middle class and safe and comfortable. However, I do feel I missed out because my mum was the worst cook in the world. You remember butterflies?
Yes, Wendy Craig.
That was our house, and so, whenever I hear someone say, oh, my mum's shepherd's pie is the greatest in the world, I really get a pang of regret about my lost childhood.
Well, have you phoned the child's helpline?
Well, I only did that after the steak and kidney pie came out. That was a particular low point.
Do you remember the Wendy Craig episode where they were all sitting around the table and she'd given up another burnt offering, and the main character, the dad, said, "Whatever you do, don't say anything," And eventually she got hysterical and wrapped it all up in the tablecloth and sort of dumped it somewhere. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah. But to be fair to my mum, we normally put it into our sock and dumped it ourselves somewhere. So
really,
yeah, we normally took. We were pretty proactive in dumping her food anywhere other than down the gullet. But anyway, poor old mum. She's about our only subscriber, Jules. So I have to kind of be nice.
I was going to say, I hope she's not listening.
The rest of the conversation, but we are going to discuss what I would term, I don't know if this is the right term for it, but kind of community business radio, and the work that you and Paul do down at Business Bunker in Kent it's brilliant. I think it's a brilliant community business radio station. Just give us a little background as to what it does, who it is, how you got involved in it.
Well, I have a PR business which is called Press Up Group, and I'm based in Whitstable. And I actually phoned up Mr. Andrews to find out if I could get my client onto the Business Bunker, and that was 7 years ago. And Paul and I had a long chat on the phone, and I was asking about the show and blah-de-blah and what he was doing. And I ended up somehow co-hosting it and driving him absolutely batty every Tuesday at 1 p.m. And I, see that as my role in life, really, to annoy Paul Andrews as often as possible. But it started off, Paul will tell you, but he wanted to give the Kent businesses a platform it's quite hard for Kent businesses to be able to tell people what they do unless they get PR or they get in the newspapers. So the Business Bunker is just a weekly show where people can come on, talk about their business, talk about what they're doing, any new products, and really plug themselves. We read out websites. The Twitter is hugely important, as you know. And most people will come on and they'll come into the studio and they'll say, wow, I've just got, 50 new followers, and it's been hugely busy from Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Going back to the relationship with Paul, if anybody should listen in, because there's a great symbiosis. I imagine from the very beginning you realised there was a kind of, there was a rhythm to your relationship, because it's hugely entertaining as a kind of sideshow to the main plot, really.
I'm not sure that we think we're funny, But
I didn't say funny, Jules. I didn't say funny.
well, there often is. I mean, we'll look at the guests and they're sort of rolling about on the floor, crying, either with agony or laughter. We're not quite sure. But there was a time when we were at Miriam McGurk, who's a writer that's been on the show quite a bit. She's written a book called Tales from Turkey and Scorpions at Midnight. So the lovely Miriam came on, and then we were invited to her birthday party. And I, of course, am quite a fan of Prosecco, you may have noticed, Andrew. Mm-hmm. And Paul, luckily, is teetotal, but I had his quota as well, and I had this lovely birthday lunch. And then they asked us if we would do what we do on Bunker, sort of a stand-up. And, of course, I was absolutely stuffed rigid with food and cake and Prosecco. Yeah. But it sort of happens that we have become almost a brand together. But every week there's someone different on the show, and it's just always really exciting to hear the different businesses that come on and how different they are, and the passion. The passion of the SMEs in Kent.
Well, I think, as with all companies, it comes from the top, and I think Paul is just a magnificent host of the show because it's such an engaged audience. I mean, I sat there on my 2 occasions, and it really was, the Twitter feed was a frenzy of activity.
Yes.
You're not sitting there recording in the dark. I mean, in terms of, is this kind of a unique type of show? I mean, are these kind of shows around the UK?
I think Paul was certainly 7 years ago a pioneer because he was on BBC Radio Kent, which is a lesser-known radio station, yes. And he had it all started. He had a row with them, because there was not a business show out there, and Paul, being Paul, decided that he was, lo and behold, going to open his own. So he did. And I mean, I know from working with Paul how much hard work he puts into it, which maybe people don't realise. But I mean, running a station like that is hugely time consuming. When the technology goes wrong, he gets called out. And it's a full keeps him very, very busy.
Yeah, it's full on. And listen, Jules, I'm gonna drive the conversation towards some brilliant news that you gave me last week, which is primarily why I got you onto the show, really. Because now the spin-off from Business Bunker, or from your experience at Business Bunker, was a show called Scoff Quaff. Am I right?
You're correct. Well, what happened was on the Business Bunker, I really sort of started. We had lots of foodie businesses that were coming on, so I started encouraging them to bring in what they cooked and what they were producing, and we started eating on the Business Bunker.
There has to be a perk of co-hosting with Paul Andrews. I guess that was it.
Yeah. So we started eating and drinking, and so I said to Paul Andrews, I think I'm going to do a food show, and because of the time constraints with my PR business and stuff, I slotted it in pre-Business Bunker. So, hard work, actually, a long day to do a live show, tumble off and then tumble straight onto Bunker. But it made sense because I live in Whitstable and the studios are in Dymchurch, which is near Hythe. So that was just coming up to its 4th year. And there's a radio station called Share Radio, which is based in Pimlico in London, and they are business, financial, banks, and fairly, I'd say, more into the emerging markets and things like that. And they wanted it for their leisure, so they heard Scoff and Quaff and approached me and said, would I put it on at the weekend? I said that I wasn't keen on working a weekend because it's the only time I have with my family. So I'm now doing a pre-record on Thursday, this Thursday the 8th. I'm going to be pre-recording at 5 p.m. and I'm inviting Kent or any UK businesses who want to be involved to tweet me during the day of Thursday the 8th. Because it's a pre-record, I'll read the tweets during the show, and it will be played out the weekend, which will give them a great shout out.
Okay, now and obviously Scoff and Quaff on Channel Radio was a Kent-based business, a show, wasn't it? In terms of the producers, is this more a UK-wide show with Share Radio?
Yeah, I mean Scoff and Quaff. I love my Kent producers and the SMEs. Although we did regularly have Colin Harkness, Colin on Wine, who would phone in once a month talking about Spanish wine. and we had some people from Argentina and various other foodie businesses, because whilst I want to support Kent, I realise that Kent people don't just eat Kent food. So it was branching out. But you're right that Share Radio is digital and it's UK nationwide. So and they wanted more of an international and national feel. Yeah.
And I mean, for you personally, I mean, here you are making a call one day, for a bit of PR, getting on as a co-host, and now suddenly onto a Share Radio Digital Nationals Day. You must be very pleased with things as they're developing.
Well, I am pleased. Yes, it's quite daunting. I used to live in London 25 years ago, and I am a bit of an old bird now. So, I mean, I have to get suited and booted. And I was the only woman last Thursday in London at a meeting in flip-flops. Right. Which, I live by the sea, and we just. I was going to
say, you've been in Whitstable too long, Jules.
But I am excited. I have a team there to help me, which is great. I've got a researcher, a producer, and an intern. So, because putting these shows together, as Paul will tell you, is time-consuming.
Yeah.
You might email someone, they might not get back to you,
yeah.
And guests cancel at the last minute and that. So it will be really good for me to have a little bit of backup rather than doing it all on my own and fitting it around family and the PR business.
Yeah, well, it's very exciting, and I see how much work Paul puts into it, and you, I'm sure, as well. So that'll be great. And so what's the the first pilot is this Thursday?
Thursday the 8th.
What is it going to be about? What's the topic?
Right, well, I thought start off, Jules, as you mean to go on, so it'll be quaffing, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking to a lovely man called Jose Ortega, who is in Argentina, and he has the most beautiful wine. He has an Alpha Cruz and a B Cruz, amongst others, superb red Malbec wines, and he is allowing or offering people the chance to buy a villa for about the price of a Spanish villa, and then actually grow their own wine or have the vineyard managed. So it's a villa with a vineyard, and they can grow their own or manage it. We also, I found an ex-banker who has invested in one of these plots, and he's just started at Plumpton College in Brighton, or just near Brighton in Lewes. So I'm going to be talking to Justin, which is the banker. I'm going to be talking to his professor of vinology.
Wow.
And we have also Clive Barlow in the studio, who is a wine expert. He's based at the Good Shed in Canterbury, so still keeping my lovely Kentish roots. So he's coming in with me on the train, and we're going to be drinking this beautiful wine and going through it, glass by glass. Luckily, I'm going in by train too.
Well, if there were jobs we could aspire to, drinking live on radio and getting paid for it is pretty much it's top of the list, I suspect. And is the show going to be called Scoff and Quaff, or are you moving?
Do you know, it's still up in the air. I think my gut feeling is that, and I've been trying to talk to a couple of branding experts, because although I'm pretty good on branding, this is something I've worked out. As you know, our Twitter reach is, we have a huge Twitter reach. It was something like 162,000 when we last counted it with Paul and myself, and our family, as we now call them. So I think it's going to be called Share Food, which I thought worked quite well. Share Radio, Share Food. But I'm probably going to keep the Scoff and Quaff. You got
to. I'm sitting here biting my tongue, thinking Share Food is lovely. I can see the link, nice cross branding, lovely.
Yeah.
Got to be Scoff and Quaff. You got to keep it in there.
Exactly.
I think so.
And I think we now allow people to come on the Scoff and Quaff website, and they can put recipes on, they can put events on as well. So yeah, I'm just going to continue to evolve Scoff and Quaff, and I'll probably have a Scoff and Quaff slot in the program.
Okay.
Which would be a chance for producers and market people and people that make jam and cakes and things to just do the same thing, because I think I'll have to have bigger clients on. I think the sponsorship on Share Radio is a much. It starts at £10,000, for example, and we're talking bankers and big institutions. So I will need the big boys on the show, but I'll also want to keep my small producers, which is hugely important.
No, absolutely. Well, that's where it started. That's where it stemmed from, really, wasn't it? So, promoting and supporting local producers, and I think keeping them involved is a key pillar of it all. Well, listen, Jules, you and Paul have both been a star to LawyerFair, and we've become great friends. So I wish you the best of luck with it all. Just just clarify again when people can listen to it. And where.
Okay, so what I'm advising people, because it's a pre-record, I still want to be reading the live tweets at that time. Mm-hmm. So I'm asking people to tweet in, if they tweet in optimally on Thursday the 8th and every Thursday, if you just diary that and tweet at Jules Serkin, that's Jules, and then S for sugar, ERKIN, all one, Jules Serkin on the Twitter, or at Scoff Quaff, which is QUAFF, the Quaff. If they tweet in on Thursday the 8th, and then it will be played out twice a day during the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So any events and things will be read out. And also the Scoff and Quaff show, which I'm not sure if you know, has been syndicated in the USA for the most of the time that I've been on air. So if you have any businesses that want USA sort of business or import-export, that sort of thing, it also will be syndicated again to the USA.
I didn't know that, Jules. Syndicated via what channels?
I send it out. I send out the show, and it goes on a radio podcast called Flavor Living.
Right.
And he plays it out a couple of times. And then I was also syndicated to a little Kent radio station in Sandwich and Dover Sandwich area as well. Mm. So, and different listeners. And it's interesting because, for example, one of my regulars on the show was the Fat Carrot, the lovely Jane Apps, who's a vegetarian caterer. And as soon as it was syndicated in the Sandwich area, she got loads more followers from that area. So, it just shows you from these little things, it just snowballs, really.
Well, I think that's the nature of what you're doing as well. It's building up into something very exciting. So, listen, thank you so much for your time. I know, as I say, I started this discussion with acknowledgement that you've taken out some time from a very busy week. So thank you, Jules.
Thank you. May I just read out my website?
You certainly can.
Okay, so it's www.pressupgroup.com or scoffquaff.co.uk, and if you're looking at Share Radio, it's shareradio.co.uk.
Well, you've done all this before, haven't you?
Once or twice.
You're very slick. We'll have all that on our website as well, and all the links that we have to this podcast. But Jules Serkin, thank you again. Good luck. Speak to you soon.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks,
bye-bye.
Jules. That was the LawyerFair Daily Podcast. Thank you for listening. There'll be more tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the LawyerFair.co.uk daily podcast. If you'd like to listen to more, why not subscribe and download each episode via iTunes or visit us on the LawyerFair.co.uk website.